You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. Good morning, Debbie Moore. Tell me what's going on.
Well, good morning, Ron. It is January 30th, 2016, and it's a little warmer this Saturday than it was last Saturday when we had snow and ice. We're so glad to have you guys joining us. I just wanted to remind all of our racing fans that Boyd's is having their cabin fever races this afternoon. The gates are now open at the Speedway, and the races begin promptly at noon, and I think it's going to be a pretty day for that.
Right, and if you want to own a Speedway, the Cleveland Speedway is for sale.
Yeah, if you have
you've got
$1.7 million in your pocket.
If you got 1.7, I think it's down to 1.4 now. So, Eddie, it's in your range there at 1.4.
Well, seriously.
Well, I figured you guys were interested, so I wouldn't be interested.
Well, I'd be interested in $1.4.
Yeah, $1.4.
But, you know, it could be a very prop thing.
It breaks my heart to see it sitting there.
Yeah.
I want it racing.
And we have an intern, Deb.
We do. This is Morgan Denny, and he is from a student at Bradley.
Here, tell me who you are.
Your
Hello,
student,
everybody. My name is Morgan Denny. I'm a broadcasting student at Bradley Central High School.
and we're giving him the opportunity to do a little bit of internship with us.
Good voice.
He does have a good voice. He ain't scared. So that's good.
Well, yeah, that's good.
He came right in this morning and jumped in. Ron's showing him what buttons to push. So when I say push all the buttons, I maybe say
he said he's already got
Ron push
he
all
said
the
he's
buttons.
already got all this figured out. They ain't nothing to this, you know. Just push this button here. It's true. It is very easy till it breaks, and then you go, "Oh my goodness!"
How do I fix this?
When you're in the
How do I
middle of a
fix this?
show, you know, and you can't yell help. There's no timeout or nothing. You know, you just. Of course, if this all breaks up here, you put in a CD and hit the CD button, and then you call help, and it'll sit there and play the CD, and you're okay. But
I wanted to tell everybody about Boyd's, and the grandstand admission price is $17. Kids under 12, I believe, are free. Don't hold me to that. Of course, if you want to go down the pits, it'll cost you a little bit more. But we're glad to see them up and racing, and we hope that somebody comes through and leases Cleveland or buys it and gets it back up and running because it's in really great shape.
April 1954 was the first race. Doc German there. Ed Lewis was there.
I believe that's right.
Ed Lewis was at the very first race, racing down there.
Bob Roberts' dad.
Had breakfast with Ed a while ago. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
Ed's a legend in his own mind.
He is that.
Well, now,
married a young lady. I kid him about still being on his honeymoon.
Well, Ed was.
I thought it'd been cheaper if he had just adopted.
Ed's whole thing is that he'd hung around and he was really interested in the racing, and he got out there and he made a few laps and he decided that he belonged in the pits. That racing was not for him. So that was his whole career right there. But now he hung around the tracks for a number of years, as did Bob Gill. My uncle Larry Catlett, that we recently lost, was a walking encyclopedia of Cleveland Speedway and would not let me record him. But anyway, there's lots of folks out there that remember when the Speedway opened. I know that Doyle Palmer used to go and sit up on the bank in the car because there was no bleachers and watch the activities. It was segregated because it was 1954. They had stands on the far side for the folks that were not white, which amazes us in this day and time to even think such thing was on, Morgan.
Well, it sure did back then. Well, we got a old friend here, and I didn't mean that as you're old, Eddie, but
Well, I am old.
Been a friend for a long time, a good friend of mine. I've always said, and Eddie Cartwright's here. We're going to be talking about the Old Timers Sports Banquet Hall of Fame and some of the people that's been in there. Is that what we're talking about today, Eddie?
That's basically it. I don't know if we can talk 2 hours about that.
We are not worried about
Yeah,
that because
but-
Eddie and I can talk 2 hours about most anything.
There's a couple of stories you've told me off the air. If I could ever get you telling a story, would fill up
No,
2
no, no,
hours,
no, no, no.
Or at least we get a lot of calls because people say, "Was he talking about me?" Eddie, how many people are in the Sports Hall of Fame? Do you know?
Well, that's a good question. No, I don't know. Ron, why don't you let me do this? Why don't you let me go back to the beginning and tell how this thing started?
Great.
I think that's a great
That's a good idea.
Okay. The late Kenneth Tinsley was city commissioner, and his department, back in the day, the city was divided into departments, and each
Right.
commissioner was responsible for an area. And Kenneth, among his other things, had recreation. He hired Lou Fitzgerald as recreation director. And
Lou was an old-time baseball scout,
Lou
was he
was
not?
an old-time everything. In reading a write-up on Lou this week, Lou played at Bradley in the late 30s. They won state championship under Coach Tip Smith when Lou was playing. Lou lettered in football, Lou lettered in basketball, and Lou lettered in baseball. And I think he had either 11 or 12 letters for his years at Bradley. But anyway, he had hired Lou as that recreation director, and some other places had an Old Timers Hall of Fame. And I think Lou must have come to Kenneth. I don't know this. I assume that he came to Kenneth and wanted to start a Hall of Fame in Bradley County. And everybody thought it was a good idea. And so the first one was organized, if I'm not mistaken, in 1975 or 6, because the first induction class was Pokey Schultz, John Grant Hall, Dr. D.A. Sullivan, and Colonel C.F. Kelly. They took 4 in that first year. And the city underwrote the program. We had a banquet, and if I remember right, we had it at the Holiday Inn on Keith Street. And back in the day when it first started, we always had a speaker. And Lou was well known enough in the baseball circles that he could get Atlanta Braves players and so forth to come in. I have a picture that I gave to a grandson at Christmas this last year of Hank Aaron and myself sitting at the table at the Holiday Inn. Hank was the speaker.
Wow.
And a little side board about Hank came up, and it snowed while he was here, and he got snowed in and had to spend an extra day here, and Lou always kidded Hank about costing the city extra money, you know.
Well, that's pretty good. You know,
Seems like he was just a really nice
He
man.
was
when you-
quiet spoken, but a good guy.
And that was about the time that, I mean, he hit that home run, right?
Dan
Well,
Gilly,
he had
46?
retired.
Yes.
Okay.
But not long into retirement.
Right.
Dan Gilly lived
74
in
or
Atlanta and was an usher at Fulton Stadium, and used to talk to Hank Aaron and Nico, all of them, all of them. And he said he don't have one signature or one thing. He said, but he'd stand there and talk to Hank Aaron, for days.
Well, I remember Kenneth Tinsley came up with the idea that they were having Hank Aaron Day in Atlanta, and he came up with the idea that we would go see Skeet Reimer at Magic Chef and see if he would donate one of those small refrigerators that that people have, just a little, not a
The
regular
apartment one.
Yeah. And so he did, and a group of us went down and took it, and Kenneth got to present it that night Hank Aaron. They had all kinds of stuff there. I think a new Corvette and
Got
all kinds
But
of
he was
stuff.
impressed with that refrigerator, though.
Well, he got a refrigerator.
He was
But
probably
anyway,
tickled with it.
as the time went on, of course, the thing grew and went from about 4 that first year to 10, 12, and we had to do away with the speaker because we were there too long.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a very nice meal. We have in that first group of folks, Lou set up a selection committee, and I'm recalling from memory now Willis Baker and Red Dockery and Lou and Jim McKenzie and that's about all I remember. And then and that's evolved, and the selection committee, and we met just recently, now is Suds Barrett, which later became the recreation director. And Suds deserves a lot of credit about keeping this thing going, because while he was there, the city could very easily have thought, well, this is a place we might cut the budget and cut that old timers out or let them go on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But they've always stayed with us. And Avery Johnson, one of the council members, is on there, and Patty Pettit, who's the
Kenneth
recreation
Tinsley's daughter.
Tinsley's daughter, and myself. That's the selection committee, and we meet usually around the first of the year, and each selection committee member usually has some names that people have given to them over the year of potential inductees. And
Let me ask you a question there. You read the first 4. Do you know who those? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about each of those people? I mean,
yeah, I think so.
okay. I mean,
so.
I've heard the names, but I could
Folks
not.
like Morgan who have never heard of these people.
Well,
it's
Pokey Schultz.
he's up on that big mural inside the library at Bradley High School. Yeah. Well, go look. He's on there. Pokey Schultz.
Well,
Isn't he?
Pokey was,
No, that Bill. You're talking about Bill Schultz.
No, I'm talking about Pokey
Oh, is it?
on the big mural inside the library. Yeah.
So some-
anyway, Pokey was a football player at Bradley, and I mean the early years. I think Bradley started about 1916, and Jimmy Lovell, a good athlete from University of Tennessee, came as a coach, and he coached both football and basketball.
I believe he was also still playing sports at UT.
Well, he not only
A
was
little
playing
bit
some,
while
but
he was coaching.
Yeah, he was playing a lot of semi-pro stuff after he
Yeah.
came to Bradley.
Yeah,
But
and Bradley High School field is called Jimmy Lovell Field.
that's right,
This-
named
Jimmy-
after him.
Yes, right.
Anyway, Pokey was a good halfback, and he was really fast, and he got the nickname Pokey.
Okay.
And another little side thing there, Bill Schultz, his son, who later became principal of Bradley High School and then later on mayor of the city of Cleveland, also played football and was the first father-son inductees into the Hall of Fame. So then John Grant Hall was a baseball player and was in the car business here early on. I remember him, but he was an older gentleman when I first knew him, and he was a good baseball player.
Like
the
Hall
Hall
Chevrolet?
Chevrolet? Is that
No,
No,
it's
no.
a different
different group? Okay.
different group.
Not
No.
J. Mac Hall.
No, I don't
Nope.
think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure about
Okay.
that.
I've just never heard that.
Then
name
Dr.
before.
Sullivan, who was later on a dentist here in town and a well-known dentist, was a good football player and played college football, and I'm not sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Colonel C.F. Kelly was recreation commissioner before Kenneth Tinsley, and he went in, as I remember, in what that we have a special category for somebody that might have been an athlete, but maybe not of the caliber to be inducted into this, but made a contribution to the community, and he fell under that, and that was the first 4.
Now, what is the guidelines to get a Hall of Fame? I mean, do you have to be
Well,
you
we
have to be
started
100
it-
years old before you get in, or what's the
Well, we started out, Lou did. He set it up to be, you had to be 60 years old. And and had to be your name had to be put in nomination, and then the committee had to vote you in. Now, we have gone away from that somewhat because we ran out of people. And we might have run out in one sport, for instance, maybe in basketball, and we needed somebody, and we might take in a 58-year-old
Oh,
instead of a 60.
Right.
And so we did that.
I know there are a couple. Dennis Botts is in there.
Yes.
A couple years ago, Dennis and I graduated together.
I think
And Paul Johnson, which is Bob Johnson, your brother, was.
All the Johnson boys are in.
all the Johnson.
Well, he
boys.
was. The only thing about Paul was he played at Cleveland. The rest of them played at Bradley.
That's right.
So he was the odd. He was the.
Tell you a little quick
he was
story.
the trader raider. I always called Paul.
Well, I'll tell you a quick little story about that. When I was younger, I liked to go to Cleveland and Bradley football games. Whoever was playing, I would go. And I had season tickets at Cleveland and Bradley. And it so happened that my tickets at Cleveland were right in front of Bill Johnson, the father of those boys, and his lovely wife. And he would, of course, yelling for Paul, "Come on, Paul, way to go, Cleveland," that sort of thing. And he tapped me on the shoulder, and he knew I was a Bradley fan. And he said, "Boy, it feels different to holler for somebody besides Bradley." Of course, having had Bob and Tom and Bill Jr., all of them played at Bradley, and he said, "I'm really a Bradley fan," but said, "What do you do?" I said, "You support your son," and of course they did. But the next year after that first year, some really notables went in. Jimmy Lovell was one of them. Tip Smith. And by the way, they took Tip's grandson into the Bradley High Basketball Hall of Fame last night.
Yes.
And I went down to that, and it was a lovely affair. Kent's mother, Muggs, and his wife and his youngsters were there, and what impressed me as much as anything was how many of his players showed up to congratulate him. And
Kent
What-
is probably the winningest coach at Bradley.
that's right, he is. But Tip went in, and Bud Morlock, that's Commissioner Morlock, Jeff Morlock's dad. He was a great baseball player. And Jess Chestnut went in, and he worked for years for the city of Cleveland, and he drove the fire truck for Cleveland a lot of years.
Now, is he one of the Chestnuts that lived above the fire hall?
He lived above. That is Jess Chestnut, and he was a good baseball player. And Jim McKenzie, who was a fine football player at Bradley, and Gene Calloway. Gene was captain of the Bradley team in back in the day. And then Audie Davis was a real baseball player. That was the second class, and it's Bank of Cleveland has sponsored a plaque on the courthouse wall, and I believe there's 7 of them now hanging there, and there's about 50 names on each plaque. And we have gotten a little bit behind on putting names up. And
Now, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Tough question. Well, we got to be politically correct.
Okay.
You hadn't named a woman yet.
Well, and back in the day, we hadn't named a black either, but we got politically correct and included minorities, and we'll just let the ladies be in the minorities. How's that?
But there are ladies in there now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Many.
that you will recognize.
Can you name one off the top of your head?
Connie Day.
Well, that's pretty good.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I was going to go back to Jimmy Lovell here. A lot of times you'll see the old annual pictures. You can always tell him in the picture because even several years into being at Bradley, he's still wearing his Tennessee
White
sweater.
sweater
a
with a
white
T.
sweater with a big T on it.
Right.
And so I thought, well, I'm glad he wore
We,
something.
we
I can
found-
pick him out from everybody
We've got a
else.
program or a picture of the program of when they dedicated the field to Jimmy Lovell, 1940,
47, maybe.
40s, sometime in the 40s, and pretty impressive. That. Then he went back over to Middle Tennessee and was a farmer after that. I think.
That's right. And we had invited him to be the speaker. This is back when we had speakers. And he died 2 weeks before he
Oh.
was to come to be our
Oh.
speaker. Had a heart attack. I had a brother that played on the last team that Jimmy Lovell coached at Bradley.
Yeah, it's hard to find people that play for Jimmy. As a matter of fact, Carl Green, who's passed away now, was in here. He was 90-something years old.
He
and
was 90,
He
I
had,
think.
he had his gallbladder taken out about the week before, and he drove himself down here, 90-something years old, come in, and he said, well, I played football at Bradley. I said, who was your coach? He said, Jimmy Lovell. I
And
said,
we were
I
just
had never
speechless.
met
We were just-
anybody who had actually
Played.
had played for Jimmy Lovell. And, it's sort of take back knowledge.
And it was
that
nice that he could describe, what a good gentleman he was.
From the history of, if you're a big history buff like I am, and us Bradley folks, all of us are Bradley folks here, going back to our early roots of 1916 when the school started, officially when Bradley Central started then. It was one time it was just called Central High School. It wasn't,
Way back.
It wasn't Bradley Central, it was Central High School. And then it became Bradley, then it became Bradley Central, so we went through a few little name changes over the year. But meeting somebody that actually could play
Sports
with
has always been important at Bradley. Who would be? I like you
Let
just
me-
going down the list here.
Let me
but you do what you want to
let
do.
me tell you who the first lady was to go in and what year it was.
Okay.
First lady was a lady by the name of Edith Fennell Apperson, and she went in 79. And I don't remember. I guess it was basketball. I don't remember for sure, but that was the first lady. The next year, Mary Frances Park. She was Mary Frances Payne, and I believe she graduated from Bradley in 1933, and she was homecoming queen, football homecoming queen.
Mm-hmm.
And we took her in, and she was also a cheerleader. But that was in 1980. She went in, and after that,
I'm trying to
almost every year
remember
we had a lady.
Robert Easterly's wife,
She was an Irvin. She's Don
Yes.
Irvin's sister.
and I know that she got interviewed because she had played for the Bradley Barretts.
What about
I believe 1928 or something.
is Sylvia Coates on the list there somewhere?
Yes,
I thought she probably would be.
yes, she is.
Who was the first black athlete there? Do you remember?
No, but in a minute here, as I come down
Did they
this
come from
list,
Bradley or did they come from College Hill or where would it be?
I'm not sure. I'll look down my list here and see
You know,
what we can.
People like Terry Scott, Levi Scott, and all come to mind.
I'm over here looking at the list. Eddie has typed it up very nicely. That's a good thing to do.
I'm glad somebody gets.
That-
Eddie, when will the public know the nominees for this year? Have you announced it yet?
Well, I'm going to tell you some of them. I
All
can't
right.
tell you all of them because they've not all been contacted
Well, we'll do that.
yet.
Before you go in there, you be looking there. Folks, you're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. The phones are now there. If you have a question about sports or a comment, if you have a good story on Eddie Cartwright, you can call and tell that. If you have one here on Morgan, see someone calls Morgan, so we say that, do that. Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Once again, good morning, Ron.
Hey, Bullet.
What about Andy Ballinger? Was he nominated to the to the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
No, yeah, Andy was a great running back there. I know my cousin Bruce Epperson played on that team with him, and unfortunately Bruce was a halfback also, so he got to play behind Andy. But yeah, Andy was a great guy. We lost Andy about 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was inducted in 2011.
Yeah.
If I'm reading it right.
That was a good.
Premier.
He was a great athlete.
I'll tell you a real funny story about Andy. I actually watched him win the state championship, and like if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the one that scored about 2 touchdowns in that game.
I'm sure he did. Yeah, he was one of those legendary names. As I was coming up to Bradley, I got there in '68, and of course we knew Guilford Sanders and Andy Ballinger and Steve Sloan. Those were names that come before us, and even Victor Hicks. We'd even heard of him.
One more thing, Ron, I'll let you go. You was actually talking about pecans a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I actually won a pecan pie yesterday from Tea Cookie over at Bishop Bill's Bake Shop. So if you notice little crumbs in there, me and Pro Dam Outdoors eating it in there yesterday.
Oh, you done ate it? I was going to bring you a sandwich or something. We split a pie.
All right, good talk to you.
All right, thank you, Bullet.
Thanks, Bullet.
You can call us here at 614-5553. Phones are open. Go ahead, Eddie. You ready?
Yeah, the first black fella was Roy Perkins.
I've never heard of
Now,
Roy.
who was Roy?
Roy was an athlete over in, he might have lived in the edge of Meigs County and probably played at College Hill. I knew Mr. Perkins, but I don't remember. I don't have the write-ups here in my scrapbook, but he was the first black fellow that went in.
Very interesting.
Well, so if somebody's listening and knows more about Ray, Ray Perkins?
Roy.
Okay.
Roy T. Perkins.
If somebody knows about him, that'd be great if they call in. And
Second one was Roscoe Johnson, and he played football at College Hill.
all right.
We always like to tell the story of Avery.
Avery played at College Hill, and after
did.
after he graduated and started working at Dixie Foundry,
Played still.
he still played.
For like 2 years
That's
after he
probably
graduated.
not legal.
Well, they
Well,
said
I don't think they were a TSSAA team at that time.
Well, they said because the population of the school was so low that everybody knew he was doing it, and so I guess I don't know. They didn't try to hide it.
No.
I tell
But
you,
we always enjoy getting a big chuckle out of that.
We've had Avery and Andrew both in here together talking, and we can't get their sister to come on in, but
They came one day, but they didn't have a lot to say. They're not big talkers like Andrew.
they told some really great stories about Cleveland and first getting here and being a black family. And matter of fact, we think about trying to get them in February, Black History Month, trying to get them in here again.
Just a little bit
I like
more.
Andrew a lot better than I do Avery, though. But I like Avery a lot, but I like Andrew better. Just in case Andrew's listening.
Right. Okay, to go on with the early years, we try to make it pay its own way because we're now having it at the Museum Center at 5 Point, and as we have to have the food catered in, and we don't want to certainly be a burden on the city of Cleveland, and so we pretty well break even. Occasionally we have the plaques donated by McKinsey Insurance Company that we give each one that's inducted a plaque with their name on it and what it is and the date and the sport. Or if it's special category, why they may not even have played a sport, because we've taken in many that are just good folks and made contribution in the community. And
Lifelong fans like Ron.
Yeah. Hey, go ahead, call you live.
Ron, it's Bob Cash.
Hey, Bob
Hey,
Cash,
Bob
how are
Cash,
you?
What's up, buddy?
Hi. Listen, y'all talk about sports and everything, and I heard, you probably know more about it than I do, that Red was a quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs. You heard anything about that?
Well, she played 2 seasons and then she hurt her knee.
Oh, she had to get out.
Yeah.
See what's there. You guys were talking about Andy Ballinger, and I'm so glad he got nominated in your thing there. You Andy real well. Years ago, Andy and I worked for my little round buddy, Alan Jones, down at the Credit Bureau. And Andy's a fine person. And I visited him once or twice when he moved up to Kentucky. But occasionally he'd help me get rid of some of that cold beer. But Andy was a fine person. Yes, he was.
Well,
I'm still in contact with his widow,
yeah.
Great.
and she's a fine lady. She just before Andy died, she brought Andy to town, and they had a little get together out at the Old Fort Restaurant. And
Yeah.
a bunch of his buddies came and met with him, and
I seen him they've done a reunion of the class of 60 through 64, and he was there, and I got to talk to him. And now, hey, when you and Andy were, you said you were consuming that cold beer, I bet Andy could outrun you, but you could outdrink him.
Well, you got that right there. Now.
Well,
You got that right.
So if there's ever a beer drinker Hall of Fame, Bob, we're going to nominate you for it.
you're number one.
Yeah, do that. And get red in there with me, you see.
Okay.
Well,
Anyway, I'm enjoying you.
Thanks, Bob.
And I'll talk to y'all.
Good to see you.
All right,
Good to
bye-bye.
hear from you.
We started out, Lou kind of, and I was not on the selection committee in those days, but Lou kind of had the rules and regulations, and we only really looked at baseball, football, and basketball. Now, since then, man, we have really spread out into officiating, wrestling, all the sports.
wrestling's a
Tennis.
big sport for Bradley County now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
But it didn't start till the 70s.
No,
Yeah.
You know,
see,
so,
we
yeah.
were already going when
When wrestling-
Bradley
Oh, yeah.
County became the wrestling capital of Tennessee.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure that
Still there.
I'm sure we're starting to get some people now that are starting to qualify for that.
Right.
Getting close.
Well, we've got some wrestlers in there that qualified really in other sports, kind of like Emmendorf.
Bill Emmendorfer, yes.
You know, so
Yeah, but Bill probably definitely was a football
Yes,
inductee
yes.
and was good in all that. Matter of fact, I think I have a picture of Bill over here. I might post up here in a minute.
What about C.A. Kyle? What did he
CA's
do?
in basketball.
Mhm.
I bought one of Mr. Owenby's books last night. They're out, by the way, and they're $20. And I did not get in bed till 1 o'clock this morning because I couldn't lay it down.
Is he selling them out of his trunk? Is that what he's
Well,
doing?
no,
or?
they had a table set up at the basketball game at Bradley High
Oh,
School.
that was a great place for it.
That's right, and there was a line there buying them.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't get
hey-
when I'm going to be angry.
Hey, Gary, if you're listening, you need to call us and tell us about the book real quick and bring me a copy.
Well,
I'll tell
and
you
then
what,
the
it's
Scott
a-
family all wanted like 5. We're
well, I
afraid
tell you
to,
what, it's a great book, and my wife said, I can't believe you're going to buy one of those books and just look at numbers. Folks, it's not just looking at numbers. It's got
pictures.
history. It's got pictures. It's got stories.
And
you know, and I'll tell you from experience, something like that just doesn't happen. He's worked really, really
Oh,
hard.
has he ever?
And now he's working on a football
and
one.
Gary, and I've told Gary is that when
have quite a
I worked
collection of-
with the website for the football team at Bradley, I have a huge collection of Bradley High pictures. I've got the 1916 team, 17 team, 18 pictures.
20.
The goalposts were 2x4s, and it sagged in the middle. And of course, they didn't have any face masks, and but
But if anybody out there has snapshots, particularly, I know probably 1916 they don't have snapshots, but from the 50s you might have, or a picture that ran in the newspaper. That's the kind of thing that Gary would like to have too. Something beyond those annual pictures.
I probably have 200 football pictures
Incredible
from years,
pictures.
and that don't even count the pictures we took at games in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
They were just old pictures. And so Gary's working on that book. It's a 2-year project. Easily.
Oh, yeah.
Labor of love.
Well, I tell you what, now I can now speak firsthand about it. I did not get finished with it, but I stayed up late and long looking at it. And I tell you what, it was really neat, I thought. He talked about the DNA of Bradley High School. Well, now that I'd never thought of that angle. And he had a list of names there of people that I was fortunate enough to be one of those names, having played at Bradley and then have a son that played at Bradley, and Ralph Cartwright played at Bradley, and Johnny played at Bradley. So the DNA, went through our family, and we were all, none of us went to Cleveland High School. Nothing against Cleveland High School, and I'm a little bit like I heard Ron say on the radio this morning. When they're not playing Bradley, he was yelling for them. They were local kids too, and they are. And so many of my friends' children went to Cleveland, and I went to a lot of games, and I certainly pulled for them. But
I'll see Ron too.
My sister went to Cleveland.
Out
Of course,
in,
I call those people Trader Raiders. So-
out in town and stuff too. We'll run into football players from Walker Valley and Cleveland and wrestlers from Cleveland and Walker Valley, and Ron will always go up to them, congratulate them, or talk to them about the season and stuff. So they all know him too.
Well, going on with our folks, there's been some unusual people taken into the Hall of Fame. For instance, we have one man that went in that coached at every level. He, first of all, he played at Bradley High School. He made All-State. He went in the military, and on the way home from military, he stopped at Western Kentucky University to see Dee Gibson, who had played at Bradley, that was playing there. And they had a pickup game on Sunday afternoon while he was there. The Western coach, if I'm not mistaken, was named Diddle. Last name was Diddle. And he had a big window in his office, and he could sit in his office and see the gymnasium floor. And there was Buddy Kate dunking the ball, which was almost unheard of back in the 40s. And but he was, and Mr. Diddle came out and said, "Young man, who are you?" And he told him, and he said, "Well, when you leave here, where are you going?" He said, "Well, I'm on my way home," but said, "Mr. Rupp over at Kentucky has asked me to come by Lexington, and I'm going by there." And he said, "Young man, I've been watching you play. You could play basketball right here at Western Kentucky. You really don't need to go by way of Lexington." And Buddy Kate told me this himself. He said, "I didn't go by way of Lexington. I made up my mind that my friends were there at Western." So he went to Western. He made All-American at Western. But that's not the end of the story. He was assistant coach for the Kentucky Colonels, who was a professional team back in the early days.
Hold that point right there. Let me get this call real quick. Go ahead, call. You're live.
Mr. Morris, Gary Orby here.
Gary
Hey,
Orby,
Gary.
how are you? We understand that your book is out.
It is out as of yesterday. We had some at the game last night. We'll have them at all future Bradley home games the rest of the season. I think we've got 5 of those left at least, plus some tournament play that we could have at Bradley.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have them at the Town Squire if you want to drop by there and see Mr. Larry McDaniel. He has to supply. And also Mike Smith at the trustee's office asked me to put some there. So there's several places around town, including the school, of course. You can get them there. Or if you see me out and about, I'll have some with me just about every time.
Now, if you would like to come down here to Whoop Studio one Saturday morning, sit in our lobby, we'll invite people to come down here, and you can sell them and autograph them.
I would be glad to do that. I mean, my autograph might value the book itself, but I'm glad to do that, Ron.
Like somebody scribbling in it, right, Gary?
But yeah, people like to have that personal touch, and Terry Scott called in last week, and he says he needs 4.
I'm about to meet Levi in about 30 minutes.
All right, that's even.
Well, I was at the Bradley game last night, and I bought one of the books, and I was telling folks here earlier that I didn't get to bed till 1 o'clock because I was thumbing through and reading, and it's a great book. Really is. You've outdone yourself. I didn't know you had that much talent, but I guess you do.
Ghostwriter.
Hey Gary, think about Saturday the 13th. Gary, think about Saturday the 13th. This next weekend, Deb and I personally will not be at the show. We got someone else running the show because we're going to the wrestling tournament. And then the next weekend, it'll be a good time. Because the
13th.
following week, I'll be going to another wrestling tournament. So
We'll plan on you being here on the 13th, and I will speak up here and say it always helps if people have correct change.
Yes, well, $20 each, so most people carry 20, you know.
That works. That works.
Gary, for people who may have tuned in right just a few minutes ago, tell them what the book is again real quick.
It's the complete history of Bradley Central basketball. It's
Hey, and let me interrupt. Complete's the word. It is complete.
There's just not anything that I could find that's not in there. Every game, every score of every game from 1921 on when the boys started and the girls a year later, all the coaching records, all the career scoring records, all of the individual game records, the Hall of Fame members, the retired numbers, they're all listed, the family connections of players who played and had children who played and grandchildren who played.
And pictures, lots of pictures.
Lots of pictures, and then I guess one of the highlights is all the different stories in the front of the book about some of the big wins and some of the tough losses we had. That an unusual thing, it covers the history of Bradley High School from day one. It covers the history of the TSSAA. It covers the integration. It covers the way overtime games were played way back when. It covers the switch to the three-point shot in the 88-89 season. It covers the switch to the girls 5-on-5 to 6-on-6 in 78 season. So it's got everything in there.
It sounds really great. And I was just telling Eddie there that I probably have 200 or 300 football pictures for you.
Well, good, because I'm working on the book, and we're going to have it out. Probably what we're going to do is incorporate this upcoming 100th season, have it out at the end of the year, and that'll have 100 complete seasons of Bradley football in that, and it should be a fantastic book as well.
Well, I do have, like I say, I have 200, 300 pictures. I'm going to burn them off on a disc for you. I got photos of old programs and, halfbacks and fullbacks separated out, team pictures. I've got, when I done the website for the football team, I had a lot of that.
A lot of them are scanned out of your books, but at least they're already scanned for you.
Yeah, well, that's what we have to do. We have to turn around and scan them ourselves anyway. And the listeners out there, I would encourage them to get those pictures to us. They can call me or they can reach me on the internet. I put my email out there several different places. They can do it that way. And this basketball book is going to get other folks who just probably didn't know about it until it came out and say, hey, I've got pictures. I wish we had known about this. I could put them in there. And we'll have a second edition. This is just the first edition that's this year. And within 3 years or so, we'll have a second edition to update the seasons since then, since the book was published, which is last season. Then we'll have all kind of other things and a whole new crop of pictures and everything in there.
There's a guy in Knoxville. His name is Mike Harper. He wrote the complete history of West Fannin, Georgia football.
Okay.
And he heard about your book. I was talking to him about some Copper Hill pictures the other day for our documentary. I was telling him about your book, and he says, well, I want a copy, so I will get you his address and stuff so to do that. If anybody has pictures and want to drop them off here at Old Town Cleveland, they can do it any Saturday morning, and we'll be glad to get them to Gary.
Gary, you definitely need to talk to Ron Rogers. I think he has 4 or 5 scrapbooks from the times that he played at Bradley. His mom kept everything.
I've already spoken with Ron. He's
okay.
very aware of it, and a good friend of mine. And
I was real impressed, and he loaned those to me, and they were fabulous. And I scanned a lot of the stuff in there that's on these scans that Ron will give you.
Yeah, but like I say, we have a lot of stuff. And,
please don't be bashful. If you've got something you think Gary can use, please get it, and you can always drop it off here to us.
I'd like to thank Earl Rowan, too. I know he done a lot of research and has the scores from the early days, and that was a huge thing that I know I got a copy of it somewhere now.
And those, not to remind about it, those pictures will be returned to you intact. Some people were afraid that if they gave you the picture, wouldn't get back. But yes, sir, you'll get every one of them back.
Well, if you bring them here, Deb can scan them. She usually brings her
camera or
scanner, and she can scan them and put them on a JPEG, and you can take them back with you if you want to.
If you're really worried about it, but it's probably better to let Gary actually scan it himself. But sometimes we just have to do what people are comfortable with.
We're just willing to help you.
Yeah.
Gary, thank you so much. It's $20, the complete history of Bradley High School basketball program, boys and girls. When he says complete, it is complete. It's
Town Squire, Bradley High School basketball games, the high school.
Yep.
So they are at Town Squire now?
I know where I'm going.
At 12 o'clock, you know where I'm going.
And I'll be there on the 13th, and we'll have.
Well, great. We'll
set you up a table.
We'll promote it, and matter of fact, I get my copy. I'll scan the cover and post it out on our Facebook page, and tell them that they need to get hold of you.
Okay, Sam.
Thank you, Gary.
Hey, thank you, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We always appreciate somebody, whether it's sports or anything else, promoting Bradley County history.
Yeah, history's great. You were talking.
Yeah, Buddy.
We were at Western Kentucky, and
we can interrupt Eddie. He can just pick up where he was.
Buddy Kate, after he graduated, he was drafted with the Colonels and played with them, and then coached with them, and then ended up coaching at a high school up there, and then came at the end of his coaching career to Tennessee Westland. Tip Smith was the athletic director at the time, and he brought Buddy in, and Buddy took the basketball program to a new level up there. Scott Mayfield was alive, one of the Mayfield Creamery folks, and supported that program, and it was really as far as I'm concerned, an excellent move for Coach Smith to bring Buddy Cade in. But that's just a little side story.
I love those because talk about somebody that can do a lot of different things. That's wonderful. Let's get this call.
Go ahead, call you live.
This is Frank Lowry from Polk County.
Hey, Frank Lowry, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine. I just want to mention one particular game I saw between Polk and Bradley at the old Polk County Gym in 1962 with Lloyd Hewitt, Steve Sloan, Barkley Guerin. I can't remember the other two. It went 2 overtimes, and then at that time you played a sudden death. The first one to score wins, and Polk had beat them at Bradley. But this was the second game at Polk County, little old gym. It was packed, people hanging out the windows, and Lloyd Hewitt come across the half line at Polk County. Of course, the floor wasn't really big. It's an old gym, and he shot one from nearly the half line, and that's how Bradley beat Polk that year. Lloyd Hewitt was one of the best basketball players I ever saw in high school. And I think Bradley went on that year. I'm sure they did, to win the state championship with Sloan and Hewitt and Barkley Guerin. And I just wanted to get that in. That was an unusual game. They played 2 overtimes and then a sudden death.
I'm not sure we don't have the picture of that up.
We do.
Okay.
Watkins played, Bromley played with Sloan and Hewitt,
Right.
and Barkley Guerin and Watkins boy and
Steve Gibson?
yes, Steve Gibson and
It was a great game, and like I said, Polk had beat them at Bradley, and Polk had a good team that year. They ended up playing again in the district final at Calhoun, and we had a 6'7" boy, Ronnie White, got in foul trouble, and Polk County fans, old ones like me, still remember Bob Deal calling about 3 fouls on him in the first quarter.
Dirty deal.
Dirty deal?
Dirty Deal. He was the man. He was the guy that had Mr. Dirty on his shirt, on his refereeing shirt.
Oh, I remember him very well. Frank, your dad, you're Frank Jr., right?
No. He was my uncle.
Okay. We looked at a Life magazine this morning with a picture of Frank in there.
Yes,
Frank D. Lowry.
right. He was in on the
Good
Yep.
government league, yes.
political thing over in Polk County with the GGL.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to.
I just want to pass that on. That was one of the best games in the Polk-Bradley series, and an unusual game. It was sudden death. So I enjoy your show, and I appreciate
Hey, before you go, I'm going to take you off the air. Deb, go ahead and push your button there. Deb wants to talk to you off air. Yeah. Sometime those history folks come in there, and we need to talk to them, get some history from them.
Right.
So, my phone went off. You know, I get messages everywhere. I can multitask here. You have to learn to do that. Someone asked about Levi Scott. He probably played 66, 67. Is he in there?
He's in there in just a minute, and I'll tell you
now,
what.
does
year.
Terry and Levi both, or all the Scott's in there?
They both went in the same year, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. Terry and Levi went in 2012.
Okay. So now is Gloria and
Gloria Scott went in 2013.
and Alvin? He'd be 60, 61 this year.
Alvin went in 2013.
Okay. So that's the Scott family.
Yes.
So, but now Levi played. Terry was the first one,
Right.
And then Levi, and then Gloria, then Alvin. If I get the ages,
I believe
right.
that's right.
And Levi works in Chattanooga now, still lives here. Terry's in Oklahoma. I think Alvin is in Phoenix still. And I have no idea where Gloria is. Last time I seen her, she spoke at the 100 Black Men banquet. Last time I saw her, but I don't know where she's living at now.
Okay.
So that's just my little brief history. Great family. And matter of fact, I think they're all going to be in town in September sometime, and we're going to get the four Scotts on the radio show at one time.
Be a good show.
So that would be
good show.
Terry Scott for Morgan sitting here was the very first black player to come to Bradley High School.
I'll tell you another little side deal on that. They were closing College Hill High School up, and those of us that were in the coaching profession, and I was coaching at Charleston High School at the time, and of course Bill Walker, being the coach at Bradley, he got first shot at those players coming out of there, and naturally he grabbed Terry and Levi and Bozo, but there was a couple other fellas that played that wasn't bad too, and they had not been really talked to, and so I went over and talked to these two guys, and I'll never forget Paul Person was one of them, and Bandy Scott was the other one, and I said, you guys want to go to Charleston, you could play basketball. And they said, well, we don't know, but Paul said, I'll talk to my mama, and her name was Betty. I remember her well, fine lady. And so in a day or two, Paul called me, and he said, Mr. Cartwright said, my mama wants to talk to you. Would you come by and see her? I said, sure. So I go over.
Hold the story right there.
All right.
I'm sorry, Eddie. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
He's got great stories. Hello, you're live on the air. They changed their mind, Ron, or push the button again.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm right here.
Well, hey, go ahead there.
You're live on the air. Go ahead.
Great. Just wanted to call in. This is Bill Stamps calling. Eddie Cartwright and I have been Facebook friends for a while, and I just wanted to call in and say hello to Eddie. We finally landed in Cleveland, Eddie.
Great. I listened to that voice. Is that
That's
not
a
a
pretty
radio voice?
I found an old picture of Bill Stamps, and I didn't know who it was, and I had to circle it around town. I knew it was a radio guy, but I didn't know because I think he had a mic on there. He had on the overcoat.
I think Bill gave us that picture.
And
This guy gave us that picture.
or Bill, maybe you give the picture. That's what it was.
Folks, if you want to read some interesting stuff, you need to read what Bill writes. He has had me just the anticipation of what he's going to say next in his little articles he puts on Facebook. They're wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Eddie. I know I'm probably catching you right at the tail end of the show, but I was wondering, have you spoken any about Jimmy Cannon, what a great shot he was, and if 3 points had been available at that point, that he more than likely would have been the highest scorer at Bradley Central?
We haven't got to him yet, and we're going to be on the air until 12 o'clock, so we've got some time. I probably will get to him because he was one of my kids over at the old Cleveland YMCA back in the day, and I knew he was a winner all the way. He was kind of like Steve Sloan. No matter if they were just playing the card game rook, they got the best cards. If they were playing basketball, they scored the most points. They were just that's the kind of people they were. And Jimmy Cannon certainly fit that mold.
He sure did. Well, he was a good buddy of mine back in high school days. Chris Huff, Tommy Barnell, John Pullen, those fellas. But it just seemed like Jimmy had something special. He was just a born athlete. Still is. I understand he's a scratch golfer still. But what an athlete. And I regret that we moved to the West Coast about the time that everybody rolled into Bradley, and I was really looking forward to graduating with the class of '66 back here. We've just arrived back in Cleveland, and Eddie, thank you very much for the plug. We're planning on doing a little writing about my childhood right here in Cleveland, Tennessee, back in the late '50s, early '60s.
That's wonderful. I'll look forward to that, and
Bill
certainly would buy a book.
Wait, Bill, would you like to come in and talk about it on Old Town Cleveland?
Well, I'd love to, Ron. By the way, I love your show. I picked it up over the internet, of course, out in California, and it's just really fabulous show that you do. And
brings back a lot of memories.
Folks, I don't know if you all realize it or not, but and I don't want to embarrass Bill, but you know he's really big time stuff. I'm serious. I have followed a little bit about what he's done over the years and some of the promotions that he's been involved in and so forth. Hey, it'd make a great show to have him on, and you'd be getting a real bargain.
But now, what makes me so mad about Bill, though, is listen to that voice.
Oh, I know. He's got that voice.
You know, I've got this little whiny voice over here, and he's already else.
Well, you know what it is? My dad, as some of you may remember, I hate to say that, use the cliche or phrase old-timers, but in fact, I realize that I'm now in that pack of old-timers, being 67 years of age, but my father was with WCLE in Cleveland probably for about 5-6 years. I happen to think that he was probably the greatest morning man I ever heard. He was on the air for 62 years. When we left Cleveland, we moved out to Medford, Oregon for just a year, a school year, I should say, and then he bought his first small market radio station, a little bitty place called Crescent City, California, and remained on the air, as a matter of fact, up until the day he passed. Was the morning man, and sold the radio station a few years prior to his passing. And I tell you, I have some old tapes of him, and I think a couple from WCLE when, I don't know if you remember, FM just came about in the early 60s. And
oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, they were calling it F&M in those days. And Dad put WCLE FM on the air, and I think probably his finest radio years were here in Cleveland. I really miss him, and I miss the sound of WCLE in those days. I've had some great conversations, I should say, communication with Steve Hardline Sr. on Facebook as well. But, gosh, those were the days, I'll tell you. We drove down, we just got in yesterday. Nice enough to get a cabin out here at Bendabout Farm. Beautiful out in this area.
Yes.
Drove down Ocoee Street yesterday, saw the monument, some of the fine homes on Ocoee. Drove over to George R. Stewart. Can't find Bradley. I guess it's gone. Huh?
It's on South Lee. You passed it coming up from Bendabout.
Now, wasn't that, didn't that used to be the...
golf course.
Yeah, the country. You know, I used to caddy for Steve Sloan over there.
Yep, that's where the golf course was, and that opened in the fall of '72. I went to the old Bradley and graduated in May of '72, and they closed the school down. When I left, they just didn't need to keep it anymore. They had to build a new building.
Yeah.
Hey, don't get off the line. Stay on the line here. Deb wants to get your number there, and we want to arrange a show with you. So,
Okay.
Deb, grab your phone there, and I'm going to take you off there. Thank you, Bill, for calling in.
You bet. Great show. Keep it up. Eddie, nice to hear your voice, and we look forward to seeing you down the road here pretty soon.
Excellent.
Thank you, Bill. Well, doesn't he have a great voice?
He does. And I'm talking about he's promoted some big acts.
Yes. He's.
You know, I'm not sure. It may have been his dad. Maybe promoted some concert with the Beatles. I'm talking about big stuff out in
Well,
California.
the pictures there, and I meant to ask him before he got off there. Did he teach Tom Rowland everything he knew?
Well, I tell you what.
They would have been around that early. I mean, his dad definitely would have been around with
Bradley
Tom.
County, you know, for us to have had Bill Stamps, and then to have Tom Rowland and to have had Corky Whitlock, you know, we've been very fortunate radio-wise to have those kind of personalities do our talk shows and our radio. It was a different day. Radio was different. It just, I know every morning when I would get up, I never shaved without having a little radio there on the counter and listening to whoever was doing the morning show.
You know, I grew up listening to Corky Whitlock and Tom Rowland.
Yes.
You know, and of course, Tom had his little comedy things he did, and of course,
Uncle Lot.
And of course, and then over on WBSA they played the John 'em Down Store. Lum and Abner.
Lum and Abner
Yeah.
had a yes.
She's taking my number.
Where were we?
Ron and I are down to 2 pieces of paper over here that we're passing
Where
back
were
on.
we, Ron?
Before we go there, let's
We
go
need
ahead
to go
and
to
take our
break.
good morning break there. And Morgan, all right,
Oh, we're going to let Morgan push buttons.
Push this right over there.
While Ron is doing that little training, I think we need to remember a gentleman down in the McDonald area, good friend of friends of ours, and that's Mr. Bill Parker, passed yesterday down from the McDonald community. Just wanted to mention that.
I believe Bill Parker, if I'm not mistaken, may have served on the school board, may have been a partner in the Blue Circle hamburger place with Billy Frank Smith, the coach at Bradley.
Oh, now you're talking Blue Circle Hamburger.
I think so.
Morgan, you haven't lived it.
I knew Mr. Parker, and
I
I had
understand.
not
The
seen
original
him in a
Christmas.
lot of years, but I did not know he had passed away.
Every week at our break, we play a song called "Gone Home," which is right after the commercials. Which this is in honor of all those people that's passed in our community. As we say, when someone dies in our community, some of our history dies with it. So, Morgan, if you'll hit that green button right there, we'll play it.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
No dealers allowed.
Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933, offering the best with over 70 styles of recliners, sofas, electronic lift chairs, full living room packages. Call Mike now at 961-7239 because Jackson Catnapper now offers sales to the public
Every Saturday. That's right. Every Saturday.
from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon. Or call Mike at 961-7239 or go see him
Every Saturday.
at 1911 King Edward Avenue, just across from the main plant. Jackson Catnapper, family owned and operated in Cleveland since 1933. 961-7239.
No dealers allowed.
At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we pay the most because we buy the best. And we make selling your car to us as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, bring your car, truck, or SUV to one of our stores. 2, we'll give you a free appraisal with no obligation. 3, sell us your car. It's that easy. At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, we buy the best, we sell the best, and we pay the most. Visit us in Cleveland, Dayton, or Chattanooga, or go to buyheresellhere.com. That's buyheresellhere.com. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Check into cash. Need a little extra cash right away? Who doesn't? Turn your car into cash at Check into Cash.
Get up to $4,000 with your car title, only from Check into Cash. You get more cash with a Check into Cash title line of credit.
Turn your car into cash today at Check into Cash. Visit checkintocash.com for the store near you.
$4,000 title line of credit maximum, based on value of vehicle and ability to repay. Subject to credit approval. See store for details.
After 135 years, Hardwick Clothes, America's oldest since 1880, has delivered on our commitment to produce the finest navy blazer in America. This limited edition blazer was announced as the style winner in Garden & Guns Made in the South Awards. Crafted in Cleveland, Tennessee, we use premium Italian wool from the Tale Barbaris, custom Bimberg lining, and signature gold buttons. It's available through the finest men's stores or at hardwick.com.
All of my friends that I loved yesterday have gone. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. The songbirds are singing, the dells seem to say you've gone. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. have gone home, they have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. Where the old town goes. They moved it all over here in a shopping mall. Where the old town goes. Did my hometown get old, or just me? Did all my friends get old, or just me? Are they all gonna have to be told, or just me?
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.com. Morgan, how do they call us?
Well, Ron, they can call us at 614-553. Again, that is 614-5553. I forgot the third the five.
Now,
You were just seeing if they were paying attention,
now,
right?
see, if they're out of town, how would they call us? 423. I know.
It's harder than it seems, isn't it? Yeah.
On our cell phones, we don't have to dial as much numbers as we did. But of course, now, Eddie, you remember when we only had? I remember we only had to dial 5 numbers. How many did you used to have to dial?
Well, I remember before the dial where you just said 75J. That was a number.
Was there a can and a string involved in that?
No, but I see these old phone directories, and Callaway Grocery had a 75J or something number. And
Morgan, if you have trouble, too, getting in and out on your phone here, we're like in a concrete bunker here.
Hey, go ahead, caller. You're live.
Hey guys, Doc Hollywood.
Doc Hollywood, how are you, bud?
Alive and well.
Hey, Doc, we have an intern. His name is Morgan Denny, and he may be here next Saturday to help you out a little bit with the show.
Awesome. Does he know anything about flashing the pictures up on the screen there?
He knows absolutely nothing.
Well, he's watched me do it.
Well, he knows 10% of what he needs to know now. But that might be a real experience for him to come spend some time with you.
I told him, come on in and experience Doc Hollywood. It's something he'll never forget. It's something he may want to forget, but he'll never forget it.
But it'll be, he's a nice little fella, and he's a student at Bradley, your old alma mater.
Class of 82, proud of it. Never missed a day of high school, and darn proud of it. Yeah, I'll be glad to have the young man in there. We'll expose him to what it's like back in the 1980s. You guys are taking a well-deserved week off, and an enjoyable trip looks like over there to the state wrestling.
Well, Doc is going to come in, and he's going to run Old Town Cleveland for us. We trust Doc with our show, and he's going to talk about the 80s, about the businesses and the music and the food and the women and how you dressed. And Doc always talks about women.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, it was always, a herringbone chains, the gold chains was real popular. See, you're always nervous with it, Ron. You guys remember, you wish to get a kink in your chain. It's bad when you get that has that happen to you.
Yep. Or if you got them little kinks in your mustache, if you happen to have a mustache back in, that hurt.
I was watching a girl dance one night around a pole. I guess some of you know what that is. She had a little hitch in her get-along.
Eddie, people just tuning in going, I've watched a woman dance around a pole.
With the itching her
Well, I was on
Did
a
you
cruise.
give her $5 or anything?
No.
Some of you remember Cleaston Runyon. He's the one that actually said that. We were on a cruise ship coming down the Nile River in Egypt, and they had a little show that they were doing for the guest, and she had doing a dance of veils around the pole, and old Cleaston leaned over and said, I believe she's got a hitch in her get along.
Get along.
Well, and Eddie don't remember nothing.
Here first.
Eddie don't remember nothing about that cruise.
Good food.
Yeah, good.
Oh,
Well, hey,
gosh.
Doc, when are you going to do your Dynamite show?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be a marathon of a day there. We'll do Old Town Cleveland there and probably tour around town, Cleveland, and probably get loosened up next door at the lounge, if you know what I mean, and pop back in there at 6 o'clock sharp for another award-winning edition of Doc Hollywood's Dynamite Dance Show. We feature the best of the 70s, 80s, R&B, and my favorite, disco.
Morgan, you might want to come back and observe that.
Sounds good. Of course, we're going to have a one-time special giveaway here at the very end of the Old Town Cleveland show. It hit home with your special guest there, Eddie Cartwright. I did happen up on Eddie. My this ticket is good for free water slide down Mount Chalet Super Slides. This ticket must be some 30, 35 years old.
I remember it well. We lost a lot of money on that.
I had forgotten until I looked at my ticket stuff here. You actually had fuel. You had twin slides side by side.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's up there on Chalet. No, were you in competition with White at the same time?
We were the first one in Bradley County, and we're doing reasonably well. We wasn't making a lot of money, but we were drawing some people in off of I-75 to stay at the chalet so their kids could use the water slide. And they went across the road and put a new one in, and theirs was longer and faster than ours. And luckily it came a big rain, and our slide slid off the hill, and we gave it to the First Baptist Church.
Now, was that Chris White's dad?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the first person that came down there's knocked their two front teeth out or something. There was some story that went like that. Well, Doc, we appreciate you.
All right, Doc, where did you eat at in the 80s real quick? What was the number one place?
The biggest place, of course, we were cruising up down Keith and 25th Street. Hardee's was the big hangout. Some others. Don't have my notes in front of me here.
What about the Burger Chef across the street?
Oh, yeah, Burger Chef, of course, in close proximity to the infamous Tokens Game Room, which is now one of the checking the cash outlets there on the front side of the Village Green. That was a big thing, going over the shelf and always going over there to the restroom. And, occasionally you might slip behind the theaters up there on the hill. Cinema 1, Cinema 2, I guess, in its heyday. And, I had a big time there going back and forth, and we'll talk about that. And speaking of that, I got a ticket from time you being in law enforcement. You'll get a kick out of this. I had a bad habit of parking the old 67 shiny black Camaro overnight there in the village parking lot, and when the security, the village police left me a dirty note. Said, if you park this car and you're taking up 2 spaces one more time, I'm going to have it towed. I was ruthless. I had a habit of parking that thing and taking up 2 spaces very, very often.
Well, we look forward to it. Do you know how to record the program? Because we definitely want to watch it when we get back.
On the Whoop system there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that, and I've got one of the little things you carry as well now.
Okay.
Oh, God, I do, sir.
The key thing is to turn it on and make sure you turn it off at the end of the program, because when it gets 4 or 5 hours long, we lose the whole thing. I've done that before, so I'm talking from experience. Hey, Doc, thank you.
We'll do. Look forward to it, guys.
Next Saturday, the one and only Doc Hollywood be here at Old Town Cleveland. If you remember the 80s, well, you just think you do, because Doc's going to enlighten you a little more. We'll see, Doc. That's Doc Hollywood. He's one of our good friends and loves radio.
I'll tell you a little funny story about the Old Timers Hall of Fame. In 2004,
Sorry, we've got everybody wound up.
You got everybody wound up. Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning.
Hey, Red.
I done forgot your name.
It's more Ron.
What in the world are you doing putting Doc Hollywood on your show?
Well, we've got to be out of town for at the.
It's either Silence or Doc Hollywood.
I guess he'll do.
I figure Red was going to say Silence sounds better.
Probably will.
But now, hey, Red, when it comes to the 80s, you have to admit he's the expert.
Yeah, he likes that disco.
He likes disco. He likes everything about the 80s. And I'm glad. Well, see, we need historians from all eras, and we've got ours for the 80s.
Well, I can tell you all about Doc Hollywood since he's about 6 years old.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. Hey, me and you know his real
You
name.
call next week, and you can just
We know his real name, don't
tell
we?
on him.
Torture him.
Did you hear Bob Cash call in about you earlier?
Yes, I did. You better watch what he says about my Bulldogs now.
Well, I tell you, I've learned never to bet against Red on the Bulldogs because
It'll cost you a shirt.
I had to go buy a Georgia Bulldog shirt for her. I told her I'd buy her one if they won, and that was a couple of years ago, and I hadn't bet anymore.
I want to know who this Eddie Cartwright is.
Well, Eddie Cartwright,
He's an old guy that kind of wandered in off the street, lived here in Bradley County for 80 years, and
For the road department.
ma'am.
Did you work for the road department?
No, I used to be the city commissioner over the street department.
I have heard your name before from my husband.
He was our county mayor or county executive at that time. Been actively involved forever.
And he operated the Chalet Motel.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, he's been in it. You know, he hadn't been in the jail.
Define what in it means.
Into it. He's been into it about everything. He hadn't been in the jail.
Oh, I can tell you one story about that during high school days, but I guess we won't go there.
Thanks, Red.
All right.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you, Red. Bye-bye.
2004 was an interesting year for the Old Timers Hall of Fame, and I'm going to read this list. Bill Talley, Mary Tim Bergen, Connie Day, Louis Alford, Cleaston Runyon, Everett Harris, Billy Kate, and D.A. Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
Now, over the years, I have given the invocation at the Old Timers Banquet, I guess since it started. And that night I thought, well, you know, God's got a sense of humor. So I wrote up my little prayer, and I had played basketball with Billy Kate at Bradley, and Billy Kate was a fine basketball player. He went to the University of Tennessee on a basketball scholarship. Left-handed, would run over your rear end if you got in his way on that basketball floor. And in my little prayer, I said, Dear Lord, if St. Peter challenges Billy Kate to a one-on-one, you help St. Peter, because Billy Kate will run over him going to the basket for that left-handed layup. Well, in scribbling my little notes out for my prayer, you know, I try to use decent English, and I don't have the best handwriting in the world. Billy Kate was deceased when I had that prayer. Not knowing his wife, they lived in maybe in Middle Tennessee or somewhere. She was an English professor. She comes up afterwards and she said, our daughter couldn't be here. I want a copy of that prayer. I said, ma'am, all I've got this little sheet of paper, and I said, and I've just scribbled it on here. You probably can't even read it. She said, oh yeah. I said, I'll make it out. So a little embarrassing to give a college English professor my little scribbling, but now that was in 2004, and in 2007 we had some very unusual folks. We had probably as well-known a football player go in as we've ever had go in, Walt Yaworski. Walt was all-pro with the New York Giants. He later on was a scout for the Dallas Cowboys, and he married a Cleveland girl. And the way that happened, and she still lives here, by the way, and their son, Mike Yaworski, is a personal friend of mine. But she was working in New York City, And the way I think Mike told me, and I hope I have this right, at a night spot, and the New York Giants players ate there. Maybe did more than eat. They might have even taken a little taste of the spirits. But anyway, Walt met her.
Oh, not an NFL player.
Walt met this lady there, and make a long story short, he married her, and she brought him back to Cleveland, Tennessee, and he passed away not long ago, and they still live out in Edgewood. But it was also in that same year, Coach Robert Maupin went in. And those of you that are not familiar with Coach Maupin, Robert was a great fella. He spent a lot of years at Bradley High School. Robert, from birth, I guess, was mentally challenged, but he loved everybody, and everybody loved him, and he took care of the little jobs at Bradley High School that needed to be taken care of, and just was a great guy, and we took him in that year, which was a little different. And then in golf that year, we took in Stan Goins. Ralph Cartwright nicknamed Stan Goins the Machine. Stan was an excellent golfer. He hit the ball straight down the middle almost every time. And Ralph Cartwright said he was just like a well-oiled machine, always doing it right, always hitting the ball right. And it hurt me deeply when Stan passed away, and I went to the funeral home, and Stan played in the foursome with me down at Waterville a lot. He always hit Spalding golf balls. And I took a new Spalding golf ball to the funeral home, and I asked Linda Prince, his daughter, if it would be permissible for me to just place that golf ball in the casket with Stan, because I said, if heaven's the way you think it might be, he may have a game up there. It might even be St. Peter he's playing against, and he'd need to be ready, so he needs to have one of his Spalding golf balls. But that's just a little side story.
Let me ask you about a player that I didn't know a lot about until I'd done some research. Lum Snyder.
Well, I was pretty young when Lum was at Bradley. He graduated about 48.
Mm-hmm.
But the story goes that, and I maybe Bernard Snyder told me this, which was Lum's brother and our former chief of police. He's now deceased. Lum was a good basketball player and got a basketball scholarship to Georgia Tech. And Coach Dodd was the coach at Georgia Tech, and he saw Lum, and he asked Lum to come out for football, and the rest is history. He went on to make All-Pro with the Philadelphia Eagles.
You know, that's a little-known fact that Lum Snyder didn't play football at Bradley. He played basketball.
He played football.
Oh, did he play? But he's got a
but
basketball.
Right.
And it went on, and is he in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
So that's a great name. And you talked about Bernard Snyder. That's a 2-hour show right there, isn't it?
It is. It is.
And
you ought to bring Wes in.
How much can we tell of the Bernard Snyder story?
Well, you can tell most of it. He's a good guy.
You know,
he was in my class at Bradley. We were same age, and he led a interesting life, a different kind of life.
He's a great guy, though.
Oh, he was.
But he's different.
And he was a really good chief of police, in my opinion.
Well, I'm going to tell you, my introduction to law enforcement, you didn't tell your story. I was coming down Keith Street from the junior achievement thing, had an 063 Chevrolet. It was barely run. When I got to a red light, I'd have to stomp on the gas to keep it running, and half the muffler's torn off. And some guy started flashing lights behind me, and I blowing their horn. I kept on going. I said, some crazy old man back here is flashing, blowing his horn, and he kept going on. And finally, I waved at him. I didn't use all my fingers.
Uh-oh.
And, a peace sign. It was a peace sign.
No.
No. And next one, a city police car surrounded me, and it was Bernard trying to pull me over, and I didn't know who Bernard Snyder was. I got to know him pretty good that night. And then he called my daddy.
Yeah, Daddy had to come get you.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some names on here, though, that really intrigued me. I know I saw Wadey,
Wadey Davis?
Senior.
Senior.
Yes. Now, talk about somebody with some DNA. Isn't he the one that has
Buck is
Buck
is
one.
his brother.
Okay, Buck.
Well, that whole family, if you'll think, there's that generation, Wadey and Buck and all those. And then if you drop down to the next generation, there's, all those boys that
Paul
played
Davis.
they all played at Cleveland High School and were all very good athletes. Greg Davis and Paul Davis. And as a matter of fact, Paul played for me at the boys club. I used to have a little football team over there called the Wolf Pack.
A few years ago, Buck come in and done her show and talked about him trying out for baseball and
waiting.
And Buck may have been a famous person if he went back for the second tryout. He's afraid he'd lose his job if he missed 2 days' work. But Buck had grandsons and granddaughters at Walker Valley, Bradley, and Cleveland, all playing sports. So he had to, one Friday he'd go watch a Cleveland game. It'd be a Walker Valley game, be a Bradley game, and for people, Buck and Wadey owned the Negro baseball team here in Cleveland.
I love to hear their stories about how they just pulled the flatbed truck up and blow the horn, and the guys would come get on the truck, and they drove them there. You had to have your own equipment.
Pretty interesting. My dad grew up at Ballpark Curve here, and basically my dad learned how to play ball watching the Negro Baseball League play down there. So, but that's a little, people don't realize that pretty big activity here in the Cleveland for a long time.
Who's Gracie May McGuffin?
Gracie May played for Coach Smitty and our Coach Kyle, I've forgotten which, but was a great Barrett. She was red-headed, fiery, good player, very good player.
Joe Hardwick?
Yeah, Joe played football, and we've got so many that it's hard to single out people.
I saw
but
Jack White on there.
Yes, Jack White was captain of the football team, about 55, and lost his leg a little while after that in a motorcycle accident. But it just, you can go on and on. Ron Campbell. Ron played at Meigs County, but Ron's a Bradley County citizen, and a lot of people don't realize that Ron played third base for the Chicago Cubs.
I know that.
Yeah, and he was a good baseball player. Well, he was a good athlete. He wasn't just a good baseball player. His claim to fame, I tell him, is he married a Cartwright.
There you go.
But who knows? Bobby Cartwright Campbell.
Eddie, we're gonna have to find out. My grandmother was a Cartwright.
I know
and
it's in the same. You're in the same.
Well, you're built like the Cartwright. I am too.
Yeah. Well, now
and elbow always had good joints in our elbow, because you could always take a knife and fork and make it work.
You can see that I can do that. My understanding, we had one black baseball player who went on and played in the major leagues. He lives in Knoxville now. I can't think of his name. We need to find out who that is there.
Like what year would that? What decade, Ron?
Oh,
Could be in a decade.
Buck Davis could tell me in a heartbeat.
I bet so. Or Avery. Yeah, they can help you with that. I don't remember.
One of the first ones from this area, not from Cleveland, but from Whitfield County, was Suitcase Simpson.
Suitcase Simpson.
Yeah, that was. I don't remember what his first name was, but they called him Suitcase Simpson, and I guess he was well traveled and had his suitcase and
he lived out of a suitcase. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't really know how they pick up those nicknames.
Yeah,
folks, you're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. My brain will quit. And Morgan, how do they call us?
Well, Ron, they can call us at 614-5553. Again, that is 614-5553. And if they're out of the area, they can add the area code of 423 to the beginning of that.
We got
thank you.
We took James F. Corn Jr. in. Jimmy Corn attended Arnold School, but in high school he went to Macaulay. and they have the Athlete of the Year award down there that they give to the best athlete, and Jimmy won that, and he was taken in 2005. George Starr never played anything in Bradley County, but was the banner sports writer for a lot
Forever.
of years, and now is in
Served a lot of
Lee.
history.
Some great stories too, and pictures he got with Karen Mills. I mean, that was worth a Hall of Fame.
Now he says that he didn't take that picture.
Yeah, he
Oh, did
said
he?
somebody took it.
He
He
gave
got
it to-
credit for it.
Yeah.
I don't know the story
Eddie,
there.
when's the banquet going to be this year? Has it been set?
Yes, it's been set for April 22nd at the Museum Center.
Okay.
And who's going to be inducted that you can
All
tell
right,
us?
There, let's get to that. Let me get my scrapbook out.
Now, Eddie, Eddie was a little concerned that he couldn't talk for 2 hours when we talked about doing this, and I said, "You've been here before. There's not a problem with me and him
Well,
talking."
we're going to try to keep it to 2 hours today, though. That's what we're going to try to do.
Okay, who can you tell us
Okay, in
about?
basketball, now the ones that I'm going to name have been contacted and have accepted. Now, some I can't talk about because I don't know if they've accepted
Okay.
or not.
But there'll be more, but this is what you can tell us.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, in basketball, David Lattimore. David played at Charleston. He made all everything, district, region, and got a scholarship to Lee University to play. And Earl Rowland called him his go-to guy. And David has done well. He's worked at Bowater a lot of years since college, and he is now also serving as chairman of the Bowater Credit Union Board. David's a fine young man, and I say young. He may not be as young as I'm thinking he is, but he seems young to me at least. And he's going in basketball. Mike Johnson is going in football. And I believe Avery Johnson nominated him, and I don't know much about him. But Mike Boland, you may remember
Softball
Mike.
player.
Oh, man, was he ever. He may still hold the home run record for slow pitch softball, and he didn't just play softball around here. He traveled with I don't know the name.
Big time teams.
Yeah, big time teams. There was a furniture company over in North Carolina I remember he played with, and he had a grandfather that promoted softball and that really got Mike into it as a youngster. And he's going in.
He could hit the softball about as far as I've seen everybody hit one.
That's right.
Every time he come to bat, it wasn't occasionally. It was every bat. First swing, ball gone.
Right. Well, I'm going to name this one, and I don't know if she's accepted or not, and I don't. So I this is a name that could possibly she'll go in eventually, if not this year. But that's Jody Adams. Jody, made All-American at the University of Tennessee for the Lady Vols and Coach Pat Summit, and is the daughter of former Bradley coach Joe Adams. And Mary Lynn's his mama, Mary Lynn West. Fine folks. But
she's a little under the original age limit.
right,
Yeah, quite a bit
right.
under.
She's not
But
quite
well-deserving.
60, but yes, she is well deserving. And probably a prediction of mine would be that one day she'll coach the Lady Vols, but we'll see about that.
Oh, that'd be exciting.
It would be. Okay, and another one that I can talk about, I think I can talk about, Johnny Borders. Johnny's probably going in the coaching category. Then there's a guy that's going in, and he's been contacted, and of all the years I've been involved with this, I've never had anybody recommended by as many people, and I'm not just talking about everyday Joes on the street. I'm talking about big names. And this guy's named Johnny Varnell. Johnny puts on a golf tournament every year for Shriners Hospital over in North Carolina. And Johnny told me this himself, that he got started doing that because he had a granddaughter that passed away that had problems, and I don't know whether it was a burn or what it was, but he started then working with that. And it has grown, and I've forgotten how many $1 million I was told that he had raised for the hospital, but a bunch of money. Now, I've got a stack of letters and recommendations at home. It's probably an inch, maybe 2 inches thick. I'm talking about Hacksaw Reynolds, Mark May, and I could just go on and on naming professional football players, professional basketball players, coaches that have come in contact with Johnny over the years through this very benevolent service he's given to this golf tournament to raise all this money. And when I called him, he lives down in the Atlanta area. When I called him, I've never talked to anybody that was any more thrilled to go in than he seems to be. He said, "Oh yeah, I'll be there. Just tell me when and where and what to do." So that's a little side story there about, and that's really all I can talk about. Now there's one that's being contacted. We have a special category, as I said before, and it might be somebody that was not an athlete, or they may have been somewhat of an athlete but made a contribution to their community. Well, I don't know about this one's athletic ability. Might not have been an athlete, but he certainly made a contribution to our area. Danny Murray and the Voices of Lee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're going to take Danny in, and he has given as much good publicity to Lee University and Cleveland and Bradley County as anybody I know through the excellent program he has over there at Lee. So that's kind of the ones that I can talk about. Now all the people that are going in, there will be a write-up, usually on the front page of the banner. One of the requirements is that they turn in a write-up, usually with a picture, and Patty and the Recreation Department have an agreement with the banner, and they run about 2 a week till they get through the 6 or 8 or 10, according to how many we take in. Tickets will be on sale at the Cleveland Recreation Department, and I believe they were $25 last year, and we've been trying to work on maybe getting that down to $20. I don't know whether we can accomplish that or not, but we have a good meal, we have a good program. It's a fun evening.
I'd like to mention that our good friend at the Cleveland Daily Banner, Joe Cannon, who has been in ICU, been seriously ill for several months, is coming back to work Monday.
Wonderful.
And so we're so excited to see him come back, and we wish Joe the best of luck. I saw Sam Cannon's name on that list. What did Sam do?
Sam was one of those that we have a second category that's not necessarily athletic, and that's called Old Timer of the Year. And Sam was the Old Timer of the Year that year, and as most people know, Sam was really involved in our community. He served more than one term as sheriff of Bradley County, and all around good fella, and he went in as the Old Timer of the Year.
You know, the difference between the women on there and the men too is that it took so long for Title IX to come into effect, probably in the mid-'70s, that women then were able to go on and get college scholarships, and so there's some fabulous people on that list that probably would have had college careers. You know, like Liz Hannah. I think maybe she, I don't know if she played just a couple of years or whatever. It was a big difference then.
Right. Well, let me tell you another little story. When I was a kid, I was raised on Magnolia Avenue, right next to Mayfield School, the old Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
There was a widow lady that lived on our street named Naomi Baldry. And she had 4 or 5 children, and one of them, Don Baldry, who served on the city school board, was her oldest son. But anyway, they had a little larger lot than those rest of us that lived there. And we played a game called corkball. And we actually built a little stadium in their backyard. We had right field wall and all that sort of thing. And the kids that played in that little stadium, it's amazing how many of them are now in the Old Timers Hall of Fame. Now, they're not in there for corkball, but Doyle Fowler, Junior Pruitt, Richard Davenport, Ralph Reimer, and myself. There's 5 out of that one little backyard ball field. It was really a neat place and a great way to grow up in Cleveland,
and you
Tennessee.
learned you guys took care of your own problems.
That's right.
And you if somebody didn't follow the rules, the rest of you kind of said, you taught them lessons.
Well,
I think our kids missed that now.
I'd agree. Well, what we did too, and this is a little different. We used a cork and we wrapped it in tape, and we used a broom handle. But the broom handle really wasn't too good, and my mama had some curtain rods that were a little bigger around, and I can remember slipping out the curtain rods. Of course, they'd get broken or whatever, okay, go ahead.
All right, caller, you're live.
Hello, Rod.
Oh, hey, Miss Ella. What's up, sister?
Well, we're under a foot of snow.
You're under snow. Morgan, she's calling from Idaho. Or Idaho? Is that where you are, or Iowa?
Idaho.
Idaho.
It's one of the big eyes.
Yeah, one of those big eyes. And we got Eddie Cartwright here with us today, Miss Ella. And we're talking about sports. Did you ever play any sports?
A little bit.
A little bit.
My sister got me out on the skating floor, and I couldn't skate, so I had to crawl back to the
Well, I've crawled skating a few times myself.
Hey, I got that picture of me and The Price is Right.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they sent it to you.
Did you ever get that 6-pack of beer I sent you?
Do what?
Did you ever get that 6-pack of beer I sent you?
No.
The nurses drank it then.
Well, I guess they did. Either that or my son works at one of the bars.
Well, so how much snow you got up there?
We got a foot.
A foot. Wow.
Wow, that's a lot of snow.
On top of what was probably already there.
It's supposed to be 60 degrees down here today.
We're happy.
Down there.
Well, Miss Ella, it's always good to hear from you.
Thanks for calling.
It's always good to call.
All righty. Bye-bye, dear. Have a good week.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Miss Ella was a long-time listener of ours, Morgan, and she moved to Idaho. She's in the nursing home now.
You know, the owner of the station here, Whoop Radio, Alan Jones, we took Alan in 2010. And if I'm remembering right, of course, Alan was a wrestler at Cleveland High School. And
Wrestler and fullback for the football team.
that's right. And I've forgotten whether we took him in wrestling or whether he was Old Timer of the Year, but one or the other. He did go in.
Yeah, he was a pretty good wrestler.
Wrestled for a state championship.
Yeah, he wrestled for a state. He didn't win.
Second.
Up on the screen, Eddie, there's 3 Bradley coaches there. And I know you'll recognize all of
Walker
them.
on the left.
Bill Walker, Red Inslee, and
Billy Frank Smith.
Billy Frank. Now all those in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell you a quick story about Billy Frank. Great guy. Was a coach at Bradley when I went to Bradley. I was not a football player. I was basketball and baseball. But Billy Frank went on from coaching to be the superintendent of schools. And after he left the superintendent, in those days, the county court elected the
I see
superintendent.
who that is now. Is that Smith? Was his last name?
Yeah, Billy Frank
I know.
Smith. Yes.
Billy Smith.
And so he and I became friends when I was county executive. Well, we were friends before then, but we really got close then. He'd been the superintendent, and he loved politics. And later on then, he would come up and play golf with us, and we were friends. And when the Thursday before he died on Friday, Milteen and I and T. Roy Jones went down to see him. He was living in Brainerd, and talked to him and all. And his wife told me then, said he wants you to be an honorary pallbearer. Well, of course, that was an honor. And they invited all his ex-players. to be honorary pallbearers. And I've told a lot of people I was the only honorary pallbearer that did not play for him. And I asked him one time, I said, Coach, she had told me this, and I said, you know, I didn't play for you. He said, yeah, but said, I like politics, and said, you were my ears and eyes politically in Bradley County. So he was a great guy. Of course, Bill Walker, I watched him court Bertha across the street. His wife lived across the street from me, and I can still see that old swing they sat in on the front porch and made woo. They sparked a little bit, I guess.
Let's take this
Let's
call
get
here.
this call.
Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Okay. Ron, I'm sorry I interrupted, but I was calling about the time Eddie started.
That's quite all right. Go ahead.
How you doing?
We're all doing well.
Well, since Eddie's there and he's been around in the city, I heard this on the news the other evening, and I don't like it. I've got a guy that rents a house next door to me, and he's renting to the Mexicans. And, you know, I don't understand their language and all. But anyway, my brother-in-law planted 2 pine trees out next to the line. Okay, the guy that owns it lives in Ocoee. I've called him 3 times and asked him to come and cut the trees down because one's going one direction, one's going the other. So I heard on the news that if that tree falls, I'm responsible to get my building fixed. And whoever started that, I do not like it.
I'll tell you what I'll do for you. I'm not involved politically anymore, but I will sit beside Mayor Tom Rowland in the morning in Sunday school. I will tell him about it, and we'll see what can be done. How's that?
I'll tell you what I did. I got in touch with the guy that came out here. He didn't come to my door, which he should have, or that's the way I feel. And he looked at the tree, and he said if that tree was dead, or those trees, there are 2 of them, were dead, we could cut them. But he said, since they're green, we can't. Now, I'm going to tell you, Eddie, I had 3 trees in my yard. I cut every one of them down because I got tired of paying to have them pruned back.
Well, you might want to check with Alan Jones about cutting the trees. I don't really know what the city ordinance is on trees anymore, but
Well, on the right-of-way, you have to get permission, but trees in your yard, you can do anything you want to.
like I say, I'm not into the political thing anymore. I just try to live and let live.
Well, okay, this guy is in control over here in this section, and he told me that they couldn't cut it.
Well,
And if it falls on my building, I've already had to repair my building once on account of my neighbor that lived next behind me. And I cut down 7 of his trees and paid Henry Hold'em $615 for that. And
Well-
this guy, he said, oh, I meant to help you pay on that. And I thought, well, why don't you hand it to me now? So he comes to see me, and he and his wife, they never mentioned nothing. I've got my receipt.
hey, well, Eddie's going to talk with the mayor, and we'll blame the mayor next week. How's that?
Well, Charlie McKenzie came over here.
Well, the mayor's a lot more powerful than Charlie McKenzie. Hey, we got swinging loaded up for you.
Pardon?
I got swinging loaded up for you.
Well, you're my buddy, you and Debbie.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, we got to run
Have
here.
a good week. Bye-bye.
On the hush, but I just said to Eddie's in with the city, or has been, you know, and I just thought I'd throw that little spoke in. But I don't like it.
Well, Eddie will work with the mayor tomorrow on it. How's that?
That'd be fine. Get rid of it, because it's either going to hit my building or either it's going to hit my house behind me.
Okay. Well, thanks. Hey, we listen for your song there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Oh.
Bye-bye.
Tell you another.
Did she say that you has been or you were a has been?
Oh, I
didn't know which
one.
I didn't know that.
Let me tell you, either one will fit me. Let me tell you a quick story.
Hey, if you're a has been, it means you were one time, right?
I guess.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing if you did it.
Well, I guess if my mother used to say, if the shoe fits, wear it. So maybe that's what it is. But anyway, 2006, we took a guy in named David Swafford. His nickname was Cotton. He was the captain of the Bradley football team and a good athlete. Now, that's not the story. The story is he has a son, played golf at the University of Georgia, an excellent golfer, is on the tour, is in the tournament as I speak, out on the West Coast. His name is Hudson Swafford, and he won over $500,000 last year on the tour, and that's a little Bradley County connection. A lot of people don't know David left here after college and ended up in living in the state of Florida, and was in had a connection with transportation for the state of Florida. But anyway, that's just a little side story.
Is Chris White on the list yet?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I take
No,
that
Chris
back.
is not
He's
yet.
not old enough.
Yeah,
wasn't
he's
reason-
not
last
quite
time-
there yet.
Last time we talked about him, he was not old enough.
I tell you,
Played the Peach Bowl 30 years
I'm
ago,
gonna
so he
give you-
must be
I'm
getting
going to
close.
throw out a couple of names. I don't think they're on there yet, but if in the future for you, from the wrestling program, Al Miller from Cleveland High School.
He's already in there.
Oh, and what about
Good.
Dwayne Shriver?
He's in there too.
Well, if they not, they needed to be. They're
They're in
two great guys that have really done a lot for the sport of wrestling here in Cleveland.
Right.
And of course, now it's the mecca of wrestling in the
That's
state
right.
of Tennessee.
I tell you, the names that are about to pop up to get close to eligible is Kenny Hooper.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
All that group that played on that 76 championship team, many of them are between 55 and 60. So they're about, and we're looking forward to that because we do need names. We need athletes. We need people that are making contributions to our
Is
community.
Dana Caldwell on there?
She's on there.
Kenny Hooper, I think, was the best fullback ever at Bradley High School.
Yeah.
One of the better football players.
Oh, he was. And, a story about Kenny. I have a picture, as a matter of fact, I think Debbie has it now, of Kenny. And he wrote me a little note on there. I was his coach at the boys club when he was 12 years old. And I knew then, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but it didn't take much smarts to realize what I had. He was a real athlete. And we were playing Oak Ridge in the Optimus Bowl. Now, 12-year-old boys. And they ran a single wing, and we'd never seen a single wing. And that, to be honest with you, they were better than we were. Now, didn't have anybody any better than Hooper, but they had several boys that were good. Score was tied. Last quarter, 4th down, 4-yard line, goal to go, had to score, couldn't get a first down. Farrell Fisher, who had played at Bradley, had a son, Stan, who was a little kid, was my quarterback. He calls timeout and comes running over to the sideline and said, Coach, quarterback sneak, I can score. I said, now, Stan, let's think about this. We got Hooper at fullback. What are the odds that you can get it easier than Hooper can? Coach, I can score. I said, no, Stan, fullback slant to the left. That was the play. So we called it, and Hooper scored, and we won the ball game. Now, fast forward about 30 years. Farrell Fisher, Stan's dad's going in the Hall of Fame. Through the door comes Mr. Fisher and his family, and Stan's one of them, now a grown real estate salesman out west. Here he comes over to me, and the first thing he said to me, Coach, I could have scored. Now that's
Scarred him for life,
that's
what
right.
you did.
That's a pretty good story.
Kenny Hooper, his senior year, I interviewed Kenny on the radio one day, and he didn't remember this, but his senior year, he ran for 1,100 yards on 100 carries. He had averaged 11 yards per carry his senior year. Went to play for Steve Sloan at Ole Miss and had a great career down there. And has all daughters now.
No.
He did. Does he have a son?
He's got a son.
Oh, how's it?
Kens is his name. He's about he's junior high, and he's an athlete. He's an athlete.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a son. He's got 2 girls and a
I know
son.
we can't recruit, but he ought to remember his alma mater.
Well, my son Tim now lives over in Germantown, and he's got boys that play, and he still talks about he was on that 76 championship team as the kicker, and he kicked off, I think, the kicker. He was only a freshman. But anyway, that's not the story. The story is that he gives, I'm not going to call any names, but former teammates of his, the Dickens, when he comes home, and they have gone either to Cleveland or to Walker Valley.
Yeah.
And
those are great schools, but there's some rules that ought to be applied.
Well, let me say one other thing, too. One of the real highlights, as far as I'm concerned, in the new book, Bradley High School Basketball, is the DNA section, where he lists players that have played at Bradley, and then their kids played at Bradley, or their
The
relatives.
Hannahs have to be in there somewhere.
They I'm sure they are,
Hannah girls.
because I'm in there with my Tim having played, and Ralph Cartwright and Johnny Cartwright. So, and then I had a brother, Garland Cartwright, and so that DNA. But that's just one name. There's a whole page or two of names of people that stayed loyal, sent their kids where they went, and I know there's circumstances where you're going to send them somewhere else. But I went down there last night to the basketball game and saw Kent Smith inducted. And, I still get that same chill bumps when they come out on the floor that I got when I came out when Coach Tip Smith told us, let's go get them. I think if you really were into it once upon a time, it doesn't ever leave you. It never leaves you.
It's something too, like we do the invitational in December, the wrestling does, and you will see those kids from those other schools standing and looking at those banners. And that's the same thing when I look over and see the jerseys that's been retired. Let me ask you something off topic. This week we posted a picture of a fella in a record shop, Birdie
Green.
Tell me about where his record shop was in the Cherokee.
It was down there, as I remember it, along of Pinion Jewelry Store was there.
Yes, I remember.
And
Pinion's.
it was I'm not exactly sure. My wife probably can tell. I was not much at music, but Bertie was my Spanish teacher at Bradley.
Okay.
He taught Spanish at Bradley. Bertie had a Church of God background, although his wife might have been the youth director at the First Methodist Church. I know she had a connection to it, and I was dating Miltine, and that's where she went to church, so that's where I went to church.
First Methodist, close to the Princess.
That's right.
That building's for sale now, I understand. I hope that it is preserved.
I have a picture of Miltine and I coming out of the front door, coming down those steps when we got married, and we were on our way up to the Cherokee Hotel to the reception. And I also have a picture of us coming out the door after the reception.
With her mom in the picture. Yeah, we put that on Facebook every now and then. That's, I was thinking of something else. I lost it.
I do that quite often.
Well, it's 3 minutes till 12. We've done pretty well.
My
batting the breeze today.
All right. So let me go. If people want to buy tickets, go through that again.
Okay, the tickets will be on sale at the recreation department. They just need to call down there, and Patty or one of the ladies there in the office will make a reservation for you, and you can reserve tables. And usually the people that are being inducted will have 6, 8, or 10 family members, and they'll reserve a table. And we usually have 200, 250 folks there. So it's a pretty nice big affair, and I got to get a plug in for my old buddy Corky McGowan. He catered it last year, and it was great food. Best banana pudding you ever put in your mouth, and that's unsolicited commercial there for Corky. But it's a good evening, and if you want to go out and take your friend with you to eat, buy you a couple of tickets and come enjoy the program with us.
And you can buy Gary's book about the history of Bradley High School basketball
At the school?
At the school, at the Bradley basketball home games, and at the town square. And on February the 13th, we'll have him set up out here in the lobby from about 9:45 to about 12:15. If you want to come by and pick up a book and get him to autograph
Let me tell one more quick story.
Oh, go ahead.
We have taken in a lot of people in a lot of things, and I get kidded about taking Raymond Swofford in fishing. Well, that didn't happen. Raymond was an excellent baseball player. He really went in baseball. He played at Tennessee Wesleyan after he had played at Bradley, and he was good, very good. He got hurt, and anyway, but he also is an excellent fisherman.
Oh, yes.
He fishes for a living now, I think, because
every day.
You can call him his cell phone, and it'll say, he was a register of deeds for Bradley County, and he'll say now, and he's been out of office a while, he'll say, I'm out of the office today. Well, I know exactly where his office is that day. It's in that aluminum boat he's got, and he's on the river.
Well, Odell tells great baseball stories, too, but I can't get him to come to our show.
Well, he was a
he
good
broke
one.
a leg last
Matter
week.
of fact, he paid his bought a farm for his family from his money he made playing baseball.
I played with Odell. Odell was a shortstop on our team at Bradley, and he was an excellent player and is an excellent gentleman. And he just
well, we want to give him best wishes. He broke his leg just last week.
Really?
Fell in the parking lot of Hardee's.
I
didn't mean to laugh. It's not funny.
He had too much biscuits and gravy and fell down in the parking lot and broke his leg. And so
we hope he gets better soon.
I don't know anything more than that.
Well, I tell you what, he started doing. He'd kind of gotten out of the mainstream as far as working with youth and baseball and all that, but he started back this year. He started.
Oh, he had
coaching.
us announce that he was
Yeah.
like 9-year-olds or something.
Well, you know, for years he had the American Legion team, and they had some excellent teams. That's one of the ways George Starr got to Bradley County. He played for Odell on that American Legion team in the summers, going to McMahon High School.
Yeah, I think George was from Athens, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Well, you know, we've talked about sports today, but we didn't get to the Lady Aces. Many of those women were fabulous athletes.
Right, and we've got some of them in the Hall of Fame.
Miss Bess Neal's on the list as being a.
What about Dot Elliott?
She was a pitcher with the Lady Aces and an excellent basketball player.
Oh, I didn't know she played basketball. I got some pictures of her shooting that ball.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's been our show there. Eddie, thank you so much.
Well, I promise all these people that's listening to this show, I'm not going to be back for a while. I think you get tired of the same voice, and I don't need to.
Well, but we do have people that everybody likes. You're one of them, Doyle Palmer and P-Dab Matthews
and Jim Hodson.
You know, there are several people. Anytime we have somebody write the book, we get Jim Hodson in here because he's the only one that we know that reads.
He's our only friend that reads books. He's really good too because he'll get the book and read it and
what
next week we're going to have the Lost
Hollywood,
Lost in the 80s,
Lost in the 80s,
and on the 20th.
Well, I wish that I could just say I was lost in the 80s. I'm lost in the 50s.
Yeah. On the 20th, the other Graveyard Diva will be back with me, Laura Bryan Spann, who's becoming a very popular guest here on Old Town Cleveland. She and I can talk about dead people all day long.
Yes, you can.
Morgan looked at me like, what?
Well, the histories from graveyards are pretty amazing when you actually start studying. Folks, we tell you every week it's time to get the pictures from out of the drawers, out from the shoe boxes, out of your closets, and get someone in the family to look at them, take some little white labels and write the names down who's in those pictures. Because when those loved ones die, you do not know who's in those pictures anymore. Share those pictures with people. We always say you'd be surprised. A picture of your grandfather might mean a lot to someone else. They worked with them. They knew them.
Well, my wife's the greatest you ever saw it. Putting them in scrapbooks.
That's good.
Labeling them, and we've got several scrapbooks. I know when I was with the city, I had a lady that worked for me, Gloria Malone, and she did the same thing. And that's one thing I do have a lot of is scrapbooks.
Well, that's good, and wish everybody did it. And today also, we listened to a guy who taped himself years ago, and his family has 47 minutes of him talking. It's great story.
More like it's 6 tracks of 47 minutes.
So it's really, really
Born in
great.
1906.
And so he talks about his father being born back in the 1800s. I have one from my grandfather where we recorded. So do those type things. You got to save the history. And we always say everybody will remember Pearl Harbor, but
will they remember Aunt Pearl? See you guys here next week on Old Town.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.